Hi everyone, this video is about the second insight in the book The Celestine Prophecy, and this chapter is called The Longer Now, and it's more of a historical look at things. So it's talking about where we have come from, how society has grown, our sort of mental and emotional point of view, going through history in order to understand now. And in order to see a more wider view or a greater spiritual perspective on our human awareness and evolution. So it's very interesting to go back. So you can actually really have more clearer eyes in seeing why it is that society is like it is at the moment when you go back in history and look through. So what does history have to do with spiritual knowledge? Everything. Because it is the mystical, hidden, esoteric mysteries, the metaphysical, the secrets, the in-between world, the higher wisdom, which truly underlines truth about humanity, our connection to spirit and the beyond. So history, as taught in schools and presented to society by government, institutions, media and so on, comes from a very, let's just say, controlled point of view, where the focus is more on things like man's accomplishments, technological advancement, the so-called betterment of civilization and society, colonization, industrialization, materialism, and the more financially oriented aspects, of die-hard work, obsessed life. So I'm sorry to say, but there is such glorification of man as almost a phallic symbol of power and greed and all those kinds of things. Okay, so one of my personal frustrations as when I was a teenager and when I was a young adult at university and so on was the way in which the education system was taught. There was no seeming logical sequencing from our human inception to where we are now. And topics were taught in a very controlled and selective modules, I found. I was more interested in the gaps in between. All the interesting and mysterious and unexplained hidden stuff, which I felt was far more valuable and relevant. So it goes to show that just how controlled and manipulated we can be. There's so many structures in place in the world that are controlling mechanisms for people, and many people are unaware and walking around like sheep and followers, and we don't know to what degree that this control is. So it's quite ironic, or rather on point, that interweaved throughout the book, The Celestine Prophecy, is that the government and church wants to hide and control all the ancient knowledge in the manuscript, which the whole book is based on. So there you go, that's by no mistake. If we were to turn things around and rather look at our world history from the point of view of the human spirit, the psycho-spiritual emotional mindset of people in all periods of history followed through, we would have a more vast and honest view of the reality of our evolution. So as we are now well into the third millennium and in the age of Aquarius, it seems apt that we're now looking back in time to see things from a new perspective, or rather a more true one. And that is exactly what many people are doing. You will see so many people waking up and questioning the so-called reality around us, the overly materialistic preoccupation of society, the imbalances, injustices, the evident hypocrisy, blatant lying, hidden control and agenda of, let's just say, institutions, certain people, mainstream media, things like that. So what you hear is conspiracy theory is really, in truth, when you think about it, conspiracy revealment. So many of us are opening up our eyes, opening up the veils and curtains, and beginning to see a clearer picture of the world around us, as well as within. And that's why the second insight is a needed insight and step to help us really see with a more grounded consciousness. Now let's look back at Western civilization's timeline as presented in the book. So go back in your mind and picture, so I'd really like you to visually picture this in your mind and experience this. Say it's the year 1000, the Middle Ages. Dogma reigns in a very fear-based medieval society. Powerful church leaders in the Christian church are in high positions of authority and hold much power and control man's thought on spirituality. They are extremely influential, and common man counts on them for their own salvation and direction. Everything is presented as a test with authoritarian judgment and control. So there's no thinking for the self. The church places fear into the masses through their gridded doctrines. So anyone or anything that happens, any kind of phenomena such as a storm or earthquake, for example, is, as the book says, defined either as the will of God or as the malice of the devil. So much emphasis is placed on good, as in surrendering to a religious authority, versus evil, as in swaying from the church. And, oh, God forbid you think for yourself. So then we move forward to the 14th and 15th centuries. So just imagine that time period now. And the medieval worldview begins to break down and collapse. Church improprieties start to be seen. Violations, corruptions. People start to question their onus on blindly following these religious leaders, and a rebellion ensues. New churches are formed with individual interpretation of the scriptures. As a consequence of all this, the whole world is being shaken up and thrown into question. With this collapse, there's a new sense of vulnerability with the unknown and man's place in the world. There's confusion, chaos. People don't know what to believe without that heavy reliance on authority figures as before. Then by the 1600s, for example, things start to change. Astronomers discovered that the Earth actually was one little planet orbiting a small sun in a galaxy with billions of stars. What? How could this be when the church had conveniently maintained that the sun and stars revolved around the Earth? Then we move into the modern age. Obviously there's a lot more years of history, but these are the periods that are covered in the book. So there's a massive focus now on science and discovery. Explorers are being sent out. Scientific explanations of our existence were highly sought after. In the meantime, though, because this did take some time, while these answers, were being explored and new territories being explored, there was a new developing focus on creating a sense of security in the world. Security. This became a total blindsided preoccupation, which is the author of the book, James Redfield's highlighted word, a preoccupation. So that kind of means an obsession, or you're so focused on something you can't see things around it or outside of the little box. And this preoccupation was with things like conquering the land, manipulating resources, colonization, economical and security progress, industrialization, secular and technological advancements, work obsession, and so on, materialism. In this process, spirituality, you could say, was lost. People became, and still are, completely and utterly distracted. There's another word there, preoccupation and distracted. And that's what the powers to be want us to be, as it is convenient for them. So at the very pivotal time period we are experiencing, as a kind of culminating climax around the close of the second millennium, we are truly beginning to wake up to the world's incessantly matrixed preoccupation. And that was by no accident I said the word matrix there. You've all probably seen the movie. And coming back to that original question, which is something along the lines of, what is the real meaning of life on the planet and our human lives? And that's where we come back in time to the time that we're in right now, here in this, whatever you want to call it, let's just say generic new age, bringing in more focus now on inner exploration, self-awareness. This is even seen in mainstream psychology, therapy and so on. And awareness about energy, the dimensions, through both psychic channels as well as accelerating new science, such as new understandings of quantum physics and our expanding world view, what many call the new paradigm, or a paradigm shift that we're now in. So this is all about evolution, a new evolution, a collective consciousness, a reconnection back to spirituality, and a higher seeking of truth, and moving beyond the illusions. So have a really good think about all of this and how you see evidence of it in your own life and that of your ancestors and cultural and historical background and that of the world, that have so far shaped your worldview, and really start to question and examine your own life and the greater reality, in quoted marks, as it has been presented to us.